welcome to our session on how AI transforms software development and its life cycle. My name is Ankita and I'll be your moderator for this session. I represent SpringPeople, India's leading enterprise training provider, and it is a real pleasure to have you with us today. Now, we all know that artificial intelligence has rapidly become a key driver in modern software development. AI is up development cycles, improving accuracy, automating repetitive tasks, and transforming how teams build, test, deploy, and maintain software. In this session, we'll take a closer look at how AI is reshaping every phase of the software development lifecycle, from planning and designing to coding, testing, deployment, project management, and even security. You will also learn about the practical tools and workflows that are redefining today's engineering practices. We are delighted to have with us Mr. Raja Gopalan, a highly experienced corporate technical trainer and software engineering leader with over 30 years of experience in delivering enterprise grade solutions. He has trained over 5,000 professionals, conducted over 100 corporate workshops, and worked across domains such as healthcare, finance, ERP, and digital media. His expertise spans data engineering, full stack development, cloud, DevOps, Agile, and more. He is also a certified safe agilist known for simplifying complex concepts with practical hands-on guidance. Teams from organizations like InvestNet, Capgemini, CDSE, On Mobile, and United Health Group have benefited from his deep industry knowledge and training excellence. Before we begin, just a quick note. If you have any questions during the session, please place them in the Q&A box. They will be addressed during the dedicated Q&A segment toward the end by Mr. Rajagopalan. With that, let us get started. Over to you, Mr. Rajagopalan.
Thank you, Ankita. Thank you, and I welcome you all for this today's session, and wish you all a happy evening. And today we are going to discuss about these AI tools that are helping us to transform the SDLC phases. So there are so many tools and applications and the frameworks that are available in the market, and we should know what those tools are provide for us, so that, like Ankita said, some of the repetitive tasks and other productivity improvements what we get out of those tools can be improved in our day-to-day development life. Okay, so with that, let's get into this session with some brief introduction about AI. So excuse me. So we all know AI is a very popular, and that's a very well used in our development. There are many products that are available in the market, and that is a key technology that is being applied everywhere, right? So what is AI? It's a brief introduction about, and there are some important terms that we should be aware of it at the high level. So AI is nothing but a simulation of human intelligence in machines, right? Enabling to perform tasks like learning, problem solving, and decision making. So it is simulating what the human intelligence we have, the way we learn, the way we solve problems, and the way we take decisions. So how it performs and how it helps us in this regard. So there are some terms like machine learning. It's an algorithmic performance based on the data. So as and when more and more data being made available to it, it improves and it helps us in taking right decisions, and it applies the data everywhere. And there is something called neural networks. So that mimics the algorithm, the way how our human brain behaves. So that is called neural networks. So these are all some of the terms which I'm just introducing to you, so that when we talk about that, or when it comes to AI, what are the components that are involved in this? So there is something called deep learning. It's a subset of ML, and it uses the neural networks to analyze various forms of data to extract complex patterns. So whenever we take a decision or something, we come out with a pattern, right? So that is the component that is called deep learning. Transformers, that is model architecture that understands the language efficiently and it focus on important part of the text. For example, when we give some instructions to the AI system, so what is the key and what is our expectation out of that? So it has to transform that content and accordingly. For example, if we say create an image or create a document, so it has to get the important key factor. Oh, it has to create and it has to be in this particular format. So that kind of a language transformation that is being done by this particular component. That way we have generative AI that creates new content. For that, generative AI is being used like text, images, music, or videos. These kind of generative AI components are being used. And one of the important is large language models. That is what called as LLM, a model trained on huge amount of text to understand, generate, and respond to human language in the natural way. The way we ask the request, it responds in the same way. For that, these LLMs are widely used, and this is the one of the backbone for most of the applications to satisfy our requests or the instructions what we give it to the AI system. And NLP, natural language processing. So these are all computational programs that interact with the same way as with human language data. So whatever the language we give instructions, it responds to us in the same language. So that way it understands that naturally and responds to that. So that is what that kind of a processing is, what we call it as NLP. And it's a new term, right? So far we were using ChatGPT, Gemini, and all other things where you give an instruction and gives you in the response in the form of a text. And sometimes it performs the text, or sometimes it performs the code, sometimes it does certain activities. But AI is going to the next level. It works independently to achieve goals without constant human supervision. So far it was giving the response, but we are going to the next stage with performing some tasks on its own, independently, autonomous that way. So that is what we call. So these are all some of the key terms which we generally come across whenever we talk about AI, right? So there are three different types of AI which we have. Artificial narrow intelligence. So that's what the current state we are in. All our applications and whatever we develop, so we are working on this particular type of AI, that is narrow intelligence, designed for specific tasks. So we want to generate a code for login, yes, it generates that, that's it. So beyond that, we still have to go beyond. So those kind of a single task oriented is called artificial narrow intelligence. And next is the artificial general intelligence. It's like human-like intelligence capable of understanding, learning, and reasoning. So it is how we, when we look at an object, how we learn and what are the other things we see and nearby objects that also we capture and we make a object out of that, right? So that kind of a general intelligence. So it able to understand all the other related objects as well and able to include in the understanding. So it learns not only the actual language or the data what we give, it learns the things surrounding that. So that is the next level of human-like intelligence. Then comes the super intelligence. So it is like surpassing the human intelligence with intellectual capabilities. So these are all in the future, but currently we are not there as such, right? So traditional phases, right? So what are the traditional SDLC phases we have in our day-to-day development of our projects or software applications? So we start with the requirement gathering, where we do the functional documentation, technical documentations, we plan the resources, and these actions are all performed by business analysts, product owners, and project managers. So where we capture the requirements from the customers or from various other sources, and we document and we move on to the design phase of development. So either we follow a waterfall methodology or agile methodology, it doesn't matter, but we still follow all these phases in our development. Either we might be in a waterfall method, we might be taking care of a bigger requirement and a design for the entire all the requirements we get. But when it comes to agile, we might be chunking in a small chunks. We might be doing all these activities as part of our development, right? So that way, design is the next phase we will move into, where we do the architecture design and what are the components that are getting involved with the technical architecture, and what are the different diagrams, or what are the different classes we need, sequence diagrams, use case diagrams, UML diagrams, and so many things which we develop. And we also design the database, and we create prototypes or wireframes for the user front end, and all the integrations related to the application. So for our application, what are the external third-party libraries that has to be integrated, or components has to be integrated? So we will have a solution for that, and we will have these high-level and low-level designs created at this point of time. So then we'll move on to the development phase, where actual coding happens, unit testing happens, and the bug fixing that comes out of that code reviews, and our repeated the bugs that comes out of unit testing, and the functional changes and whatever matching with the requirements. So continuous changes that happens, and for different type of data we test our application, and that is what happens in the development. And we do a lot of validations, and we do have all the checklists to complete the development, right? So from there, once we have that complete requirement has been taken care, we will move on to the testing phase, where we hand over our system application to the testing team, where they do the system testing, or manual or automation testing, or integration testing, and all other ad hoc testing, and all different kinds of testings they will perform. And they will report, give a feedback or report issues either in some other system, and we'll take it up. And this is a continuous process that happens until we clear all the bugs, right? So, and then later, when the candidate is ready for release, we do perform UAT as well, user acceptance test. So for that, it meets the customer's requirement to ensure that it is met, right? So that way, this development and testing is a continuous exercise that happens as part of the SDLC phase. And then we'll move on to deployment, where we get into different stages of deployments, staging environment, production environment, and all those things. There we decide whether what kind of versioning for the applications, and what kind of validations we have to perform, whether as a application overall with all the integrated components, whether it is ready to deploy and it is usable by the client or not. So that kind of validations we will perform. So then we have CI/CD for continuous integrations and continuous delivery, deployment, and all those things that happens with that. And DevOps is being involved, and we also provide user training at this particular phase when it is ready and when it is deployed. Then comes the release planning and maintenance and the support activities. Among the release, what we have done, so if there are any issues or production level issues that comes out of it, after the end users use the system, we might release patches, or we might release a minor releases. Then based on that, we will do some enhancements, and we will continue to maintain the application for it. Right? So these are all the traditional SDLC phases which we follow, and we have a lot of documentations, and each role, there are plenty of roles, like project manager, senior manager, technical architect, scrum master, and senior developer, tech lead, junior developers. So that way there are various roles that are involved, and there are various tools that are also involved to ensure that all these phases and these artifacts are all created, right? So now these are all the things which we follow. That's good, but what is this new approach? Why we have to transform to the AI, right? So existing development methods are designed for human driven. It's all a lot of people involved, and it's all long running process where there are a lot of dependencies for one person to clear and hand over and give it to the next level of it. So that way there are a lot of things that happens. So that is a long running process. So with product owners, developers, architects spend most of the time on planning, meetings and other SDLC rituals. So there are a lot of meetings that happens. So where developers involved, tech leads involved, and we have to work out the plan. We have to look at various aspects and we come out with the plan, and we spend at least 10 to 10% of our time, project time, on meetings or other rituals, right? So this is what the existing development methods are designed for. But how we have to transform? We can transform towards an AI-driven development lifecycle, where AI tools that helps us and that improves our productivity, that does a lot of activities or tasks for us, and we make use of it. We are acting like a supervisor. So that is like a new development experience for us, right, as a developer. So if you look at in this particular diagram, AI can create the plan. It can see clarifications if it has any doubts, or then as a developer we provide those clarifications, and then it can change the plan, and again it can recreate the plan. So this is like a cycle which it can go, and our human tasks are getting reduced so that the system thinks a lot and it performs certain activities. So that way, what is the benefit we get? We do things faster, and we are able to reduce the number of bugs in every level of our development phase that occurs, and we get the benefit out of that, right? So we deliver the product faster to the customers. So there are many frameworks like flow source, code spell, AI force, and there are many big corporates that has their own framework, and they have achieved 20 to 50% of the improvement in the productivity and 40% reduction in time to market. So they are able to reach the customers. They are able to take the product to the customers 40% of the time earlier than what they used to do in the traditional process, right? So how we go about doing this? To achieve that results, how we have to use AI in our SDLC. So we have to position AI as a central collaborator and as a one of the teammate in our development process, right? So that only then we will be able to take the real benefit of that particular systems, correct? So we have to look at reimagining rather retrofitting. So we are not going to fit here and there into our existing process. Rather, we have to look at the tools in a where and all it can give benefits to us in our whatever the methods, development methods we follow. We have to be part of it. AI systems has to be part of it rather than fitting or use it whenever we want, kind of. It should not be like that. So reversing the conversation directions. Earlier, we used to ask questions and then we get answers, and rather AI should be able to initiate and directs the conversation. Okay, you have to take care of this requirement. You have been assigned with this task, and this is what is your requirement is. You have to take care of these features in it. So that way, AI should initiate, and we as a developer should be able to respond accordingly and generate the code and do the testing, generate the test cases and deliver. So this approach allows developers to focus on high value decision making, and while AI handles this planning, task decomposition and automation of certain tests, and based on the changes what you do, it do the tests and create synthetic data and all other activities. You leave it to the AI system to do that and report bugs. So that way, integration of design techniques into the core. So it's not enforcing to use either you follow Scrum, Kanban, or any particular methodology. Rather, developers should be able to take some decisions where these heavy lifting activities of developers has been reduced, and you can maintain the software quality. Okay, so ultimately you build better systems faster. So again, aligning with the AI capability. So developers retain the ultimate responsibility for validation, decision making, and oversight. So ultimate authority is still the developers, but AI just provides the augmentations. Wherever you want, it can support you. I want to check is there any bugs in this issues in this particular method. So it provides analyze the code and it gives you that particular logic. So it should not be used ultimately whether to based on the suggestions provided by the AI system. It's up to you as a developer to decide whether to go ahead and take those changes or not. Correct? So that way, developers are still having the ultimate responsibility and authority on their code what they develop. So retain what enhances human symbiosis. What it means is there are certain artifacts which is needed, like user stories or any other registers, mitigation registers, or any other documentations, but still we can keep it for future purpose whenever we want to go back. For example, the design documentations, but it can be generated by the AI system, but we have to retain certain things that is needed for the future. We instead of just developing only the actual code, we need to have certain these kind of an artifacts that will help for the future analytics and future analysis. So facilitate transition through familiarity from the existing methods. So take up the best out of that from the existing methods, but with a reduced iterative cycles in terms of hours or days. So the activities that you used to take in weeks together, but now with this, it can be the iterative cycles can be done in hours or days. Earlier sprints could be of 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Rather, now we will be able to deliver the same features with 1 week or something like that. It may not be the exact 1 week. It is proportionately depending on the complexity and how much of the features or the AI systems you make use of it in your day-to-day development activities, right? So streamline responsibilities for efficiency. So it need a good amount of balance between the automation and human accountability. So the certain things which can be automated and which can be directly used and implemented, yes, there should be a balance in that. So minimize the stages and maximize flows. So reduce all those handoffs and transitions that happens between one team to another team, explanations, trainings, and all those things. Rather, the AI tools can do that and provide you that all those informations and those kind of clarifications. So that way, they continuously the iteration flows without much of the time or the time getting reduced on meetings and other activities or non-value added activities which can be minimized, right? So what is the benefit of this approach? The key is accelerated velocity. The points, how many points which we used to deliver, for example, 13 points or 21 points which we used to deliver in a sprint, now that velocity can be improved and your pointing mechanism can also be improved. So that way it generates and refines artifacts such as requirements, stories, designs, code, and tests. So it generates all those things. When you have a one-liner requirement, it can generate a document and it can add certain standard features or non-functional requirements, something like that, into your documents, and it can make the system foolproof, right? So that way it can enables you to complete the task in hours or days that previously used to take weeks, right? So innovation. So as it helps you in reducing a lot of time on other activities you perform, you get more time for the innovations. So it frees up significant time for it, correct? And you can generate the quality code because you get more time to review the code instead of spending more time on thinking about certain activities. So that way it consistently it improves the coherence and the traceability from requirements to deployment. There are situations where you might have misunderstood the requirement or you might have missed one particular word or that would have made a lot of changes into that. But here the AI system monitors the code and it maintains the traceability with the requirements so that the quality of your delivery is getting improved periodically. right? And market responsiveness, obviously, the sooner you develop and release it to the QC and the product goes to the market, so you get the feedback from the customers very sooner and faster, and the application is made to use. So that way it helps in rapid development cycle and quick response to market demands, correct? And user feedback. So with this, earlier when we have to get a logic or when for a very small and minor issues, we would have spent a lot of time in debugging that. It could be a small semicolon missing or one dot or one word extra or something like that, but it would have taken, or a cache removal from the browser, but it would have taken days together to resolve those kind of an issues. But with this AI systems, we get a different kind of experience to ensure that these AI tools are helping us and identifying these kind of issues and saving a lot of time in our development, right? So shifting focus from routine coding tasks to critical problem solving. So these kind of smaller issues, these systems can help you generate the code. You can focus on critical problems or solutions where it really needs a thinking, or whether it need a real solution to get your hands burnt, right? So that is what which we overall we get the benefits out of using these AI systems. So now we go one level down on each phases. What is the benefit we get, or what as an individual roles might get benefits out of that, and we make use of tools that can be helpful for us, right? So how AI transforms? It helps to improve quality of requirements in the planning and requirement phase. So the way the AI systems write the requirement, it will be more clear, precise, and it will have a lot of information that is needed for the developers to handle in their code. So that way the quality of the requirements will be improved, and it analyzes large amount of data and understands user needs. So that is a very important, as it understands from many application development or more and more requirements. So it understands what are the common requirements that come out of a system or for in any application. So accordingly, it gives you suggestions in getting your requirements handled for all this. For example, every application will have a login, or every application will have a logging into the Splunk or any other systems, right? So error handling, exceptions. So these are all some of those things which by default will add it into the requirement. So that way it understands what the end user needs, and accordingly it checks, adds into the requirement. It helps the business analyst, product owners, product managers to write clear requirements. So this is a common problem which we would have faced during the development in understanding the requirements easier, because the individual languages and the way it has been written and the hidden requirements, all those things can be explicitly explained by the AI system and how you have to develop that, correct? So understands non-functional requirements, like generally this may not be explicitly mentioned, like scalability, fault tolerance, or any other replications and all those things. If you want to handle in your application, all those non-functional requirements can be added to your requirement. And if that is needed, any particular feature that is needed for the kind of an application you develop, AI systems can automatically add those requirements to you, so that it helps these business analysts and product owners to write a better requirement in that way. And it detects ambiguities and missing details and identifies the vague phrases in your requirements, and there could be some conflicting and repeating requirements. So it is able to identify all these factors, and it can read requirements from various sources, from the business documents what the BAs and product owners create, or the emails. Sometimes we may get some changes that is coming out of emails from certain people, so customers, then it can read from there, and we can have meetings to discuss certain points, right? So from that meeting transcripts, it can generate requirements and action items and the customer feedbacks based on the delivery. If there are some customer has given a feedback, this could have been better, that could have been better kind of, so it can make it as a requirement for the next release, or it can add it to your backlog, and all those activities can be done. And it can generate support tickets if it identifies if there are any issues in the way it has been implemented, or based on these documentations if something is not correct, and product roadmaps. So from these sources, it can generate the requirements. For example, the complete roadmap can be created for the product enhancements and the future releases, and it can have the complete plan out of it. So it can auto generate user stories, and it can write clear acceptance criteria. So that way developer will not have any confusion during the implementation or the coding phase. So, and it can assign points as well to the based on the complexities. So sometimes we might have a confusion, either it is a 1-point story or a 3-point story or a 5-point story, right? If we follow the FSC series. So, but it can analyze that complexity and it can assign the points based on the past data by analyzing the past data as well. So there are some tools that support to that extent. And obviously, you developers, as we said, are the as the final authority who can overwrite and change. Okay. So how AI is transforming this SDLC phase? So it slice and dice requirements, creates sprints, and writes clear definition of done. I hope you all aware of this definition of done, right? So what are the tasks that a developer has to perform to say that my activity or my story is complete? What are the documentations? What is the Java docs or any other files that has to be checked into the repositories? So whatever it is which has to be done by the developer for every requirement or for every story, it can write clear definition of done based on your process, and it can create sprints as well out of that. So proactively it can monitors the project data, and it flags potential rework based on your implementation, and based on the requirement it can flag certain areas you might have to change this logic at some point of time. So that way it can understand, perform those kind of checks and flag it for you. It will help you reducing the scope creep. So when this is a common issue which we will have during the development and when we are interacting with our customers. So when we talk and when we explain the requirements, so 2 more requirements will get added up. So though it might look small, there might be 10 things will get added like that, right? So based on these communications and these kind of scope creeps can be prevented if we use any of these AI systems. So that way it can be more predictive, and it will reduce those kind of creeps that occur in your development phase. And it can trace the requirements that deviate from the baseline. So as part of your implementation or part of your various meetings and discussions, if the original requirement and from the current discussions, if there is a change in it or if it deviates, it can potentially flag those things, identify those things. Okay, originally you wanted a login page to be like that, but now this is getting changed. So those kind of deviations it can identify. The change requests can be automatically generated based on that impact. So whatever the change request. So these are all some of the things which we miss if we forget during the meetings to get requirement from each and every word that is getting discussed in the meetings. But AI system can identify all those points, and it can take action items, and it can generate this kind of documentations. So that way AI systems help you in that, and it provides smart market insights, personalized interactions, and it captures from the stakeholder discussions. So what is that market, what are the other products, and how this product has to be, and it gets the input how this particular thing being used by the users on the internet. All based on all those inputs, it can draft your requirements accordingly. and it can generate the product prototypes based on the user specifications, and that will help in reducing the efforts in the design phase. So based on what the requirements getting discussed and getting drafted, if it can generate a Figma or any other balsamic or based prototypes, if you wanted wireframes that is needed, these days the tools, AI tools, can generate those aspects. So you will get a rough picture about how your application will be designed or will look like. So you can present it to the customers and you can get the go no go signal very faster. So that way, the more clarity you have in the earlier phases, the design phase will become simpler. Correct? So that way, predicting requirements risk. What are the risks that can occur during the requirement phase itself? Having some missing dependencies, or the timelines what has been planned, which may not be possible based on the complexities, or there could be some integration related. If you have to integrate with any third party payment app or something, there could be some things which can go wrong, right? So based on the release and based on the version or open source libraries, there could be some integration conflicts that can occur, but it can predict those risks, that slippages and all those things which it can identify. And it can convert text requirements into diagrams such as use case, ER model, sequence diagrams, and flowcharts. So these are easier way for us to understand as a developers when a text requirement can it be generated as this kind of models, right? So diagrammatic view is always better and easier to understand than the text documents to spend a lot of time in reading those. So that way this will help us, right? So what are the tools that that are available in this particular phase? There could be certain tools or applications that might help across all the phases of the development life cycle, but specifically there are certain tools that are highlighted for those features. So Aqua Cloud is one of the AI powered requirements narration, and it can generate the test cases and automate prioritization of the requirements. So it has an integration with Jira and emphasizes on test coverage and agile board prioritization. So which feature has to be developed first and which feature can wait, like that Moscow scores you guys might have come across if you are into this agile, must, should, could, and would. So accordingly it can prioritize the user stories. And Notion AI is another platform that simplifies your requirement creation. For example, from the text, it can create an user stories, planning board, and every other aspect that is needed. And there are many more features, but some of it, and it can create action items as well. Tara AI is another tool, and IBM's engineering requirements management AI GPT powered tool, and Write My Product, that's Write My PRD, that is in writing leveraging GPT for quick creation and editing of your requirement documents. Asana is another very popular tool and which has a plugin for task management. And ClickUp is again, it allows querying project data and automating workflows. So Polarian or Fireflies, ChatGPT, Claude, and Genie, these are all some of the tools that can extract requirements from the documents. And Figma AI, which is something very useful in creating the wireframes and prototypes for this entire application. So if you give this requirement document or one particular requirement, it can create the UI mockups for you based on that understanding and with some questions, and it's all again depends on how you are giving instructions and things like that. So where that is where prompts are playing a major role in it, which we will understand what is a prompt is all about in the coming slides. And Jira is a very popular tool which is used in our development, that also has a lot of plugins, and it also supports along with the project management and backlog management part of it, and also sprint planning aspect. And it can create epics or stories from the natural language descriptions. So story creations and epic creation is all made simpler with the Jira. Okay, so that is pretty much about the tools that are supporting us in the requirement phase of it. Okay, yes, so small simple demo. For example, I have a requirement something like that. I want to develop a new application called Tipper for those people who take tips from the restaurant, waiters, parking assistants, petrol bunks operators, and many more people. So I want to issue an hanging tag with the QR code so that the tipper can scan and pay the tips in the form of these denominations, where 1 rupee is the commission for the application provider for providing the service, and the remaining amount will be on the tip receiver credit, right? So if this is what the product which I want to develop, what happens if we give this requirement to that, right? So that is what the simple demo which we will see. So what I am using here is the Comet browser. Okay, so let me take here. I have already given that to save some time. So when I copy and when I give this requirement to this Comet, it understands my requirement and it is doing some analysis and it comes out with that. So what is this application? It understands the technical architecture and it suggests for your React front end, Java REST service, MySQL database. Front end is this database. So it is payment integration. What you can use, it suggests Razorpay, Paytm, or any other tool. QR code generation you can use, fixed amount selection, and so it does the complete stuff end to end. But I want to create user stories, right? So what I do, I go back here, I have something called, I want to use the Notion AI as a tool, correct? So give me a Notion AI prompt for building user stories and story point tracking and task tracker in Notion for this particular app. So let's say that I have already created, if I say something like this, because writing a prompt is also very important. So the better prompt is written, you get better output. So here I have something, it generates the prompt itself by understanding my requirement. So it creates what are the user stories that is needed. For a title, it's needed user story, acceptance criteria, story points, priority, and epic. So for dashboard, it creates user personas, epics to include user authentications, admin panel, notifications, all those things it takes it, right? So now I copy this and I go to my Notion AI. Here, this is the Notion AI tool, and here it has something like this. So when I give this requirement over here, it starts generating the complete stuff. 25 plus user stories, and it creates everything for it, right? So let's give some time for it to create. So it creates stories, story points, sprint. Okay, so here if I go back, sprint one, how many sprints is needed? So everything it generates over here. So here if I look at all stories, so it generates the stories here for me, and it has the status, and here you see what are the by sprint. So design and implement database schema, service worker in sprint one, front end task, database tasks are in the sprint zero. So this way it sprint two what has to happen, and by epic and all those. So that way this helps you that complete board by giving so many informations. So I can add additional informations as well on top of that. Okay, and list points assigned to the stories, right? Okay, so that way it can generate the stories and the task. So that is how you make use of this particular tool, and you can simplify your tasks of story creation and all those things, correct? So then comes the, this is what the tools that are supporting us in the requirement phase, and then we get into the architecture and design phase. So similarly, in design, there are a lot of the before AI architects used to design the HLD and the low level design, and they have to develop the UML diagrams and the sequence diagrams, all created by hand by using enterprise architect or any of those tools. That is a time consuming, and it used to take a lot of time. And user stories, again, it's up to the architect expertise how he visualized the design and slices into the user stories. But now we have seen with that Notion AI, based on the requirement, it can create the user stories and it simplifies. So now our job is getting reduced. So we can review those user stories, make those corrections, or give instructions to write instructions to correct the stories and give assign the points, and we can take it forward for the coding phase, right? So the risk of inconsistent design, overlooked edge cases, and the slow iterations. So there are chances that you will have an inconsistent design. In one particular design pattern might have been used in a module, the other design pattern might have been used. So that way it might be having some inconsistency which can be addressed by using the AI tools. So it requires multiple review cycles and to ensure performance, scalability, and security. But all those things are addressed by using the AI system. So automating the design asserts, enhancing the architecture decisions, shortening, improving overall quality, and reducing the dependency on senior architects. So that way, these tools help us. It transforms the text prompt to the system architecture diagrams, sequence diagrams, or all these diagrams it can generate. So it also suggests the system components. What are the components we should have? When we look at that requirement to the comment, we generated all the components that are needed for the system and what are the third-party libraries that are needed. So it is able to do all those aspects, and it is able to do the database design, and it can generate the APIs that is required for those integrations, and evaluates the architecture for scalability, latency, throughput, security, and fault tolerance. So the AI systems can do all these activities, analyze, suggest design patterns, and identifies inefficient data flows or single point of failures. So failure points it can identify and it can flag. And it suggests data-driven architecture decisions based on historical data like a design advisor. And it also checks for these compliances like OWASP related security and GDPR and PCI related constraints, whatever which this particular application should be abiding to. So it can take care of like encryptions. It can check what kind of an encryption, bcrypt, SHA, MD, whatever the things that is needed. It can ensure that though any one of it is being used according to the application needs, right? So it maintains the design documentations automatically, consistently updates with the requirement changes. So as we go progress and in the middle of the development, if the requirement changes, it automatically assigns. If the design changes, automatically the requirement documents are getting updated. So here it comes it helps the requirement phase as well, and it also helps the coding phase as well. So as and when the design changes, there are certain code that will get generated or that will be flagged for corrections. So those kind of an it does that impact analysis of that particular change either in the requirement phase or in the design phase, and it can be properly handled at the coding level. So reduces the trial and error design cycles significantly so that iterations are faster. So if there are any issues which is very well known or very highlighted, it can easily identify, and it can generate the low level design for the documentations like what is the class, what are the methods, and what is the return type of those methods, and what the to do items or the functionalities that can be implemented. So all those things, and what kind of a whether it is going to be a service or it is going to be a utility methods, and whatever is needed, it can identify and generate those documentations accordingly. So it reviews your design like a senior architect of your team. And yes, obviously, does it eliminate any of these roles? No. It gives you suggestions and it helps you in minimizing the errors or bugs that can occur or which is very visible at low level, which the AI systems can identify. So final authority is again the developers and the architects and the human as the higher authority in accepting it or rejecting those suggestions. So prototype generation, which it can generate UI frames, UI flows, working prototypes, and sample API responses. Sometimes when we are developing the APIs, the front-end team might need some sample responses, though we might not have been implemented the actual functionality. So this kind of sample API responses will help the UI team to develop independently and deliver the UI part of front-end part of it bit faster. So those kind of things which these AI systems help. So it's all again, as I said, there are some certain terms which we came across. So NLP is powered consistency checks that detects and ensure design is logically complete before development. That is the power of NLP in providing this kind of a feature activity. And it can identify the missing functional requirements, unhandled edge cases, and redundant modules. If there are same feature being mentioned in multiple modules, how it can be made a common framework or a common utility, it can identify those things. So no need to implement at two different places the same functionality. So that way it can identify those redundancies. Auto generates the REST API specs, and you can work with the Swagger or Open API to understand the REST services that are getting created for this particular application. So that way it removes ambiguity between the backend, front end, and the QA part of it. So again, here there are so many different tools that are supporting at the design phase. So enterprise AI tools like AWS Q Developer that works very well with the AWS cloud, and GitHub Copilot is a very popular that works with the Visual Studio Code and other Visual Studio and other things. It can be plugged in with any other IDEs as well. Google Gemini is another important. Copilot Studio, Atlassian Robo, Mermaid is a key important tool in generating the diagrams from the text. So many tools that use Mermaid with the plugin for generating these diagrams. So Plant2ML, Diagram GPT, and there are other tools like Archimate, Cloudcraft, Lucidchart is one of the very good tool that can be used in generating these UML and other diagrams. So GitHub Miro AI has some based on the text, it can import documents to diagrams. Visual Paradigm is again another tool that can help with the ISO standard UMLs. And Star UML is a good for code reverse engineering. So when there is a legacy application, and if you want to reverse engineer and generate these documentations and understand the flow and then continue the further enhancements and development, Star UML is an important plugin that can be used. Codium is another important tool that can auto update with the code changes. So where on the fly, when you are adding a new method into your code, but actually it was not as part of the original design, so then it can update the diagrams as well accordingly. So that way it is as a syncing ability to maintain the consistency across the requirements, design, and development. Again, JetBrains is another important tool that understands the projects and generates diagram, right? So yeah, simple thing. Again, my requirement is the same, but now I'm going to use a different tool for generating this UML diagrams. For example, Lucidchart is another thing. I have given this requirement again, I copy pasted into this prompt for this. So it has identified what are the features that will be implemented. So now I say create UML diagrams for this application. Okay. So when I say that, it figures out and it will generate the UML high level. It may not be perfect. It may not be 100% correct. It needs a lot of review and almost all those things are there, but it helps you get started faster. So that way, if you look at it, generates the UML diagram for your application. So what are the tip tracking? What are the methods get daily totals? What are the string that will be used to gross amount? And what is the commission that will be taken? What is the status of the transaction? And what is the history? So for the tip, and the transaction history log, which will be maintained, and some local notification service, send instant tip notification, notify low balance, right, and set language. So all these methods it can generate on high level. So you can further enhance from here. So that way it simplifies. In minutes, you get started with your UML diagram, and based on the design, you can this. So you can add more and more features on top of it, whether you want to add use log4j and add log methods. You can say that. So it can update the UML diagrams and by using the log4j component, and it can apply that, right? So it can generate a code or it can generate the classes accordingly. So that way add master data management components or add methods for audit trail. That way you can give so many other steps as well to get your add methods to archive 3 months old tipper transaction data. So that way you can add some new methods for it. Okay, so it had added all these methods over here. So that way this lucid chart is another tool, and you can interact and you can add more and more features and more prompts to get the diagram generated, and it cannot be done in one single go. You have to take that whatever it has been generated, and you can add one after another inputs, and it has to evolve like that for the perfect diagram. So the better prompt you give, it will generate better. If you give poor prompts, it will not generate the diagrams properly. That is something which you have to be clear with that. So again, in the development phase, you have before developer writes the code, tests, fixes the bug, create the documentations, code review, and so many things which the developer does. But with this AI, all those activities are simpler. The requirements written by the AI drafts the code, developer fine tunes, AI generates, AI reviews the code, AI documents it, developer finalizes it, and CI/CD deploys. So developers responsibility comes down where he does only the what is needed, what is critical part of it, only those activities the developer performs. The rest has been taken care by the AI tool. So the AI transformed the SDLC development phase by shifting developers from manual code writers to architect level supervisors. So AI handles these repetitive, error prone, and technical heavy tasks, while human focus on logic, design, and domain expertise. So that way this AI tools helps a lot. So there are so many things. It acts as a pair programmer, it helps you in debugging, and it automatically generates the unit test cases, and it does code reviews as well. It detects logical bugs, recommend refactorings, and checks for coding standards. And it continuous document generation, it updates that, and it is easier for modernizing your legacy application. When you want from legacy code to the new framework or the latest technology, for example Java 8 to Java 17 or something like that, if you want to migrate, it is AI systems helps a lot. And secure coding, OWASP related compliance and vulnerabilities in your code, some SQL injections or any other injections that might affect your performance of your code or prone to vulnerabilities, it can identify and flag, or it can fix those issues. And it also has DevOps integrations for building the pipelines, code bundling, and deployment suggestions. So it prevents the broken build before integrations. So it helps you in that aspect as well. So what are the tools? Some of the tools that are popular, which we have seen in the design phase as well. GitHub Copilot is a very popular tool. Gemini Code Assistant, JetBrains, Amazon Q, Codium, Tricentis, Cursor, and Claude. It's a very popular tool equivalent to GitHub Copilot, and debuggers and bug fix tool and code review tools, ReviewPad, CodeRabbit, all these tools that checks for the static analysis and also reviews your code for performance and other aspect of the code quality, right? So, and it's again a visual code. Let's take a quick look at that. I have already done that because this is a very time consuming. What I have done here is I have given the same requirement, and I have asked Comet to create a prompt in such a way that it is able to generate the front end, back end requirements and what are the classes that is needed. So based on that, it generated detailed prompt, and I have given it to this GitHub Copilot, and it has generated the complete code for me for the backend and for the front end, and with the deployment as well, and the data model and build, Docker and README, everything end to end for my complete application. It has created a high level skeleton for this particular application for using it, which can be entity, commissions, refresh tokens, exceptions, all what are the different custom exceptions that is needed, integration for payment with the Razor Pay, gateway, and all those things it has generated the code. So I don't have to look at where I have to, if I want to use Razor Pay, all those things it has generated easily for me. So that way this tool helps you to generate the complete code with a very short span of time. So you can get started from here and you can complete it. Okay, so that is pretty much about Visual Code and GitHub. So again, my requirement is this. So I give it like a create a detailed prompt that asks agent to build this app completely. So when you give it to this VS Code, it generates the complete code. Similarly, we have testing phase, and before requirements are reviewed manually, QA writes the test cases, executes test failures are investigated manually, debugging by developers, update scripts and rerun, writing the documentations, and very low test coverage. This is a very key important point by using the AI tool. So it can generate higher test coverage. That is an important feature that can be used by pretty much. Converts requirement code to the test cases, generates the automation scripts for the UI and for APIs, and it predicts high risk defects early. And that is a very important aspect, and it provides the root cause and fix the suggestions if there are some issues, and it gives you the root cause analysis, generates documentations and continuous validation across SDLC. So what it means by continuous validation, as and when you change the code and as and when you fix it, or as and when you do the enhancements, or if you change the requirement, automatically all these levels of development phases will be developed and changed accordingly, and testing can also be performed as well. So that way the complete automation can be done with these AI systems. So with the advantage, you are moving from reactive to proactive, manual to automated, from time consuming to real time, fragile to self-healing. So self-healing, what we mean, it can understand the code, it is watching, monitoring each and every aspect of that development phase, and it corrects itself. And it's not nothing partial, it's all comprehensive. End to end, it takes care of it. So AI-driven test cases that can be generated from requirements, user stories, contracts, code changes, logs, traces, and historical defects, and high test coverage with the minimal effort. And automated test scripts, and it can generate Selenium, Cypress scripts, and Playwright or mobile app tests as well. And it eliminates repetitive efforts of execution, running, and documentation. All those things it simplifies and generates faster. So faster automation and lower maintenance, and that saves cost and effort overall. So self-healing test automations, identifying the dependencies, and run selective regression rather than running everything. So that way it can generally regression used to take a lot of time, and to get the result might be sometimes in days for a bigger application, but here the regressions can be identified automatically by the AI system, and it can run only the specific regression suites. And bug predictions and early detection, and analyze track traces, logs, and it helps in debugging to identify the performance issues, RCAs, and fix suggestions, and also for the code patches as well. Edge cases, boundary conditions, negative conditions, and standards related checks, privacy, safe related checks. So it can generate the test data as well to check all those conditions, so that you are able to deliver a quality code to the customers. And it, as the AI system, helps you in generating the code and generating the data and running the tests automatically in all those aspects, right? So use again performance, load and stress testing as well. It is able to perform. So autonomous testing agents. It is like the next level of the testing service. Continuously test apps without instruction. With at times you might have to trigger to run the test. Rather, these AI systems can do it automatically. When once you have configured with the GitHub, GitLab or any other things, as and when it identifies a change, it automatically executes those tests relevant to that impact and ensures the bugs are reported and it is getting fixed, and perform end-to-end workflows and creates new test scripts on their own and auto update test coverage and prioritizes which test that matters the most and executes it, and critical paths are ensured that it's always passed, and it assists in test documentation and traceability from the requirements to the design, development, and the testing. It ensures that all those aspects are all covered, right? So similarly, there are many tools: Copilot, Selenium, Tricentis, Deepcore, Tonic is for generating synthetic data, because we used to spend a lot of time in generating the data for the testing. So now all those things made very simple. Load mill for performance and stress testing. Autonomous testing agents are created, functionized, and microservice testing, Postman, test trail, and triaging as well. When there is a defect reported from the customer, all these Splunk, Datadog, and will help us to triage the defects and identify the root cause. So again, deployment is a simple phase. So it can generate those pipelines. There are various tools for risk assessments, and there are some tools that are available for creating the infrastructure. For example, sometimes if you want to provision the servers and create that hardware and then do the testing, there are some Amazon Q kind of an agent applications that will help us, and rollbacks and failures. At times when the production system, based on the data you provide or the data generated, if the deployment, if there are some missing steps or something failed, and if there is a failure, it can automatically roll back to the previous versions. So that way the end users are not affected because of this new deployment, and such decisions can be taken automatically by the AI tools, right? So that way compliance and security, AI ops is another area for predict capacity issues, logs and metrics, and grouping related errors. That is, one error could have occurred or multiple errors, and it is able to match it and group it and give it as one particular issue with the root cause and things like that. So continuous verification is an important aspect which the tools will help, and autonomous production readiness checks. So whether it is ready for the production release or not, those kind of checks can also be performed with this AI tools. Again, it helps in the project management based on the historical data, task complexities, and the team capacity and the past projects. It can generate faster planning and accurate estimates and reduce the schedule slippages. So it prevents that and generates the WBS, sprint plans, milestones, effort estimations, and resource allocation based on the skill set, which resources has which technology skills accordingly, and based on the project need, it can choose the resources as well. So it can go up to that level based on the information available, and the task complexity, workload patterns, and the assignments what that particular developer has. Accordingly, it can choose the resources for the project, and based on the velocity, and it can give you alarms, communication gaps, delays and dependencies, and the historical failures, and all those kind of risks. It can predict and flag it, and it can generate the summaries, reports, and it helps lot of time in saving the project manager efforts. So that way there are so many tools that suppose Jira, Copilot, Smartsheet, ChatGPT, Monday, Forecast, ClickUp, Float AI, Zoho Project, Trello, Notion, and Zoom, and Linear, IBM Watson, all those tools that can help in the project management aspect as well. And it helps project managers in setting the meeting agendas, capturing meeting notes, and AI-driven quality and compliance so that we don't miss those checklists and the documentation completeness before we ready with the candidate for production release. So it analyzes emails and it PM becomes a strategic, not an administrative role, right? And he is able to forecast better and takes decision faster. So that is the key important aspect of these tools supporting in the project management phase. And as we said, in all these SDLC phases, we have done so many things, we have so many tools, but ultimately what is important to get the better result. Even during the demo, we have seen when we give the clear inputs, it is able to generate the diagrams and things like that. If we give any vague phrase, it is said you are not able to do that, so you have to write it in a better way. Instead of just saying add a method for archive, create update the UML diagram with an archive methods in these particular classes, then it would have generated it better. So that way poor prompts will not give you any results. So better prompt means better AI output. So prompts are very important in key factor in with these AI tools. If you give a better prompt, you will get better results. So prompt is nothing but an instruction what we give it to the system to get what kind of an output. So the quality of the output heavily depends on how well the prompts are written. So good prompts gives clear instructions, enough context and specific format for the answer. What kind of an output I want and why I want this particular why I am giving this particular instruction, and clear cut input, right? So role, task, context, constraints and output formats are very important component in giving a prompt. So with good prompts, AI act like an architect, developer, tester, project manager and analyst. If you do not give a good prompt, it will not give you the right results. So that is very important. When it is a good prompt, you have to give you are a cloud architect, so you are setting the role. Explain cloud computing, what is the context in a simple language, how you want, under 5 bullet points. So the output format, the kind of constraints, all of those things are mentioned in this prompt so that it will be able to give a good result or good output, right? And bad prompt, explain cloud, it's a very vague. So what it has to explain, whether it has to explain uh, um, in detail, it might provide a lot of documentations about cloud which may not be relevant and important to you, or you may not be able to read or get anything out of it, right? So that way there are different kind of prompts. Instruction prompts, contextual prompts is providing the background information, and few short prompts that gives you a pattern or what kind of, right, 5 more in similar style, something like that, giving setting some numbers. Zero shot prompts without some examples, and role based prompt, as you are playing this role, so do things like that as per that role and how you want this output to be. So give me the API design in a table with columns, endpoint, method, request and the response. So that way it is able to generate the design in a better way, right? So prompts help AI perform tasks such as requirement to code, test cases, code to documentation, bug logs to fixes, and architecture to diagrams, and tasks to sprint plans. So that way it is able to do a lot of activities for you by giving the better prompts. And if we want to understand about what are the how to give better prompts, there is a set of library that is available. Like that, there are many other libraries available, but one of the important for the development related stuff is provided here, which you can refer it while you are giving prompts with by using any of those tools. So that way, for by giving the better prompts, you will get better results with those systems, right? So that is pretty much, and we have overshoot by few minutes, but sorry for that, and thanks for being patient and listening to that. And yeah, that's pretty much about how the AI tools are supporting in our development phases. You can go through these slides and get benefit out of it, or you can try exploring all these tools with the free subscriptions, and then recommend and buy the licenses and make use of it. Yep, thank you. And we'll give it to Ankita to take over.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rajagopalan, for such an insightful and engaging session. And to our attendees, it's been wonderful having you with us today. We truly appreciate your time and participation. If this session has inspired you to explore more in the areas of I encourage you to explore our virtual instructor led training programs at springpeople.com. These are live interactive sessions conducted by industry certified trainers, and you can attend them from the comfort of your home. Now, if you don't find a batch that matches your schedule, we can arrange private group sessions or recommend flexible self-paced learning options based on your convenience. For more details, you can write to us at training@springpeople.com or call the number on your screen. Our team will be happy to assist you. Now let us move into the Q&A segment. We have not received any questions so far, so we are going to wait for 2 to 4 minutes to help the learners to give us the questions if they have any. It looks like nobody has any questions. So again, thank you once again for your active participation. Now the recording of today's session will be sent to your registered email address shortly. So do keep an eye on it. Now before we close, we would love to hear your feedback. Please do take a moment to share your thoughts on today's session. Your feedback will really help us continue improving and make future webinars even more valuable. Until next time, keep learning and we look forward to having you join us in another Spring People session. Take care and have a wonderful day ahead.